and we were going to go and we were going to have a little visit with the snakes. And I went over and looked at it, and looking at it, I get tears in my eyes, and I'm having a hard time breathing, and I'm looking, I could almost work myself up right now. And I went over and I put my hand on this snake, and I lost it.
She was shaking, and she was all white, and you could see right through her makeup she had lost all of her color. And I said, I'm not going to put you through this. Let's cut it out. And I cut the whole scene out of the movie. I think she probably years and years later married me for that.
I was so relieved. And he said, but you have got to do the bugs. Like, you know, a kid, right? Okay, you can't do this, but you have got to do. And I didn't know about the bugs, and I went, the what?
And then as a kind of reward for me, we had this fake snake that she was going to have over her neck, and she said, I want to use the real snake. And this is like 3-4 weeks later, we're shooting at Elstree on a soundstage. And she actually let that one snake come down around her neck, go around here, and she said, I said, cut it out! And she got her hand around it. It was a living snake, and she threw it. And I think that was her way of saying thank you for my cutting the other whole snake scene out of the picture.
Ooh, what big birds!
Those aren't big birds, sweetheart. They're giant vampire bats.
Those bats are their fruit bats, they're called. They're really big, and they migrate at sunset. They move, so that every day they'll fly over.
This is just like the birds. It's like when they were all sitting around on the jungle gym.
So those bats are real. They actually were there. And we basically put them in, and that line where Harrison says something like, those aren't birds, honey, they're giant vampire bats. They're not vampire bats, they're fruit bats. Vampire bats are really small.
I'm Chatar Lal, Prime Minister to His Highness the Maharaja of Pankot. I had given up acting and left England, gone back to India, and then Attenborough pulled me out to do the Gandhi film. I did it, and in 1982, Gandhi had come out. People liked what I did in that. I did My Beautiful Laundrette in '84, and I think I had done that tiny role in Passage to India, which people remember. A very sort of cool, laid-back lawyer, you know, like that, who's bored by everything in Passage to India. I think that was it. And then Spielberg and Temple of Doom.
Still the expression of tremendous pressure and pain roll out towards us.
So once again.
If you think of those movies from the 30s and Republic serials from the 30s, you know, they take themselves a little bit more serious. But at the same time, there's all these sort of Abbott and Costello movies and kind of Laurel and Hardy and sort of The Thin Man. There's all these kind of movies that are sort of upbeat, which is what we wanted to infuse in Raiders, and which I had done in Star Wars. And so there's this kind of goofy 30s humor going on through the whole thing.
Wow, sneak, surprise.
What's the surprise?
And I think that scene at the dinner table does sort of capture that spirit. I mean, we did have a lot of fun discussing it because it was, oh, let's sit around just thinking the most horrible things you could think of, but it's done very tongue-in-cheek.
I mean, that was something that I'd always want to put in a movie. And Steve sort of has a sense of humor that fits right into that. He loves practical jokes on people, and I know he used to do a lot of that with his sisters. He used to, you know, throw spiders at him and things like that all boys do, but he really still loves to, you know, make creepy crawly things and have everybody go, oh my God.
I said, what about a meal of the worst stuff you would never imagine eating as long as you would live? You know, like eating eels and eating bugs and eating brains from monkeys. I think in a way, by doing a kind of dark version of the Indiana Jones series, it gave permission to poke some fun at ourselves and have a scene that was really, you know, toward gross out comedy. So we had rubber bugs with, you know, don't worry, when you watch the movie, inside the bugs is custard. And inside the monkey brains was custard with raspberry sauce.
Do you have anything simple, like soup?
And also inside the soup was just rubber eyes that had these little stickums, and each eye stuck, and Kate was told that she had to really stir the pot to get the eyes to come unglued from the bottom of the pot to float to the surface, which was hard to do. Most of the takes, only one eye came up.
I step on something.
Yeah, there's something on the ground.
In sitting around with Gloria and Bill and George knocking out the story, we were trying to think, okay, what's worse than snakes? What can we do in the follow-up of Raiders of the Lost Ark, now a globally known movie? What can we do that won't let the audience down? And I don't know whose idea it was, but somebody said bugs. And so I said, yeah, great, we'll get millions of bugs.
Yeah, sure, as long as I don't move, I'm okay. Frozen in position. Stop breathing. It's a flying scorpion. Yeah, great.
I became the bugmeister, and I found a guy in England who did bugs.
That one's on my neck. Can we get that one off my neck?
So we created this whole really disgusting bug hotel where we kept the bugs, and we had all sizes and varieties, and Kate Capshaw was not acting when we were dropping the bugs on her.
They make me do the most awful things. I have to play with bugs.
Get in the set and do the bugs.
No.
Do the bugs.
No.
Do the bugs.
No.
She promised me when she wouldn't do the snake, she'd do the bugs.
Okay, I'll do the bugs.
Do the bugs.
I was really asking people, is there a pill? There must be something I can take to keep myself from freaking out. Because I don't want everyone to look at the movie and go, she's on drugs. But I did take something that was like a relaxant. And I came to the set. I was like, hi, Stephen. He goes, hi. I go, and he said, we're going to do the bugs. And I go, okay. He said, well, I'm going to come, I'll stand with you. And I went, okay. He said, they stand here, we're going to pour some bugs on top of you. All right. Where will they be coming from? Well, we're going to pour a bunch of buckets of bugs from up above you, and they're going to just come down onto you, and it's going to be several buckets. Okay.
Cut. Okay, run.
He knows how it was the whole day.
Yeah, you take them off.
Okay, we got to get Robert down here. We don't have enough bugs to make the scene work. We need 50,000. I can't do this.
I contributed the spike room concept from many of the serials that I had seen growing up as a kid, where there were rooms with spikes in them, and it was just a flagrant homage, so to speak, to those old Republic serials, and so I wanted that in the movie, and that was part of the story meeting very early on. And so when it came time to build it, I was so excited to watch that set be constructed.
Elliot Scott was the production designer, and we wanted this ceiling coming down, but the spikes start coming down in advance of the ceiling. So synchronizing that, we did that with electric hoists, and we just timed it. And luckily for us, the electric hoists were just a perfect speed.
And it was a diabolical scene because it was also a race against time. And I remember that being one of the most enjoyable set pieces of that entire production of Temple of Doom for me to shoot and for Mike Kahn to cut. We had the best time, especially since the little coda that I added at the end, where after they finally come out and she leans over and her butt hits another device and the whole thing starts over again. That whole sequence is, I think, for me as a director, is the most successful of all the set pieces in the movie. That, to me, is my favorite scene. The evil temple. It was huge. I mean, when I walked on the set for the first day, it looked like an opera hall. It was just one of the biggest sets that I had ever seen. And it was a great set, and Dougie did the most ingenious lighting. He lit the pit with a lot of 9 lights, with a lot of red gel on it to give the fire effect coming up.
Thanks for the cross light. Thanks for the hot light. Thanks for the dark faces and the hot backlight and all that crazy stuff.
Dougie, I think, did his most daring lighting on all those kind of darkly evil set pieces in Temple of Doom.
I was lucky enough on the Indiana Jones trilogy to have two great art directors, Norman Reynolds on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Elliot Scott on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and also on The Last Crusade. The interesting thing about the sets, all 3 films seem to require fairly large interiors. We often had to use the largest stage in the studio. Quite a problem to light in a way, because they did need actually an enormous amount of light. And the great thing about both those art directors is that they were very helpful and I would ask them if they could cut certain sections in the rocks, that were things that were supposed to be rocks, to enable me to hide lights, to illuminate the scene. So it did enable me to get the quality of light that I particularly wanted in those.
Soon we will have all the 5 Shankara stones, and the Thuggies will be all powerful.
Oh, that was 1984, and he's still more or less at the top of the villain heap. He's India's #1 villain, certainly India's richest villain.
As he comes in, she's looking...
He had a good build even then. I think he was a wrestler. He didn't do weights and things, but he was a big guy even then. And he was bald for this. Do you know, he has never since had any hair. He shaved it like Yul Brynner ever since that film.
As I start bringing it, I start speaking the film.
Yes.
Harrison had a back injury on Temple of Doom. During the shooting, Harrison's back herniated. When he was fighting with the Thuggy inside his suite in the Pankot Palace, he did that scene where guys got him around the neck, and Indy like flips his body back to knock the guy off, and that's where Harrison's back went. Man, he let out a call for help at that point. That was such a knife wound, almost like a stab right through his spinal cord.
Nothing that I tried, therapy or drugs or icing or anything else seemed to help. And I woke up one morning standing by the side of the bed and was unable to move either forward or get back in the bed. It took me 45 minutes to get back in bed.
I was back here in the States actually when that happened, because I would go back and forth, and I got this call, and Stephen said, Harrison is really in bad shape here, and I don't know what to do about it. He said he's working, but he's really in pain, and I don't know how much longer this is going to last. So I said, okay, and I jumped on a plane, and I got there the next morning, and Harrison was in really terrible pain. He would be on the set on a bed, and then they would sort of lift him up and get him, and he'd sort of walk through his things, and they'd get him back on the bed. And I said, we can't do this. I said, if we have to shut the picture down, we'll shut the picture down. So I just said, let's get an airplane, let's fly Harrison to Los Angeles, let's have this operation happen as soon as possible. And we did.
Quiet, please.
Harrison Ford has a message for everybody here. I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is Harrison Ford is fine. He feels great. His enzyme papaya treatment worked fantastically well, and he's doing exercises and getting back into shape. And the bad news is he needs until August 8th to get back into shape.
Harrison had this very controversial papaya enzyme surgery performed on his back, thank God successfully and permanently. And I was left in London for 3 weeks with a double, stuntman Vic Armstrong. So I shot the whole fight on the big crusher on the conveyor belt with Vic Armstrong. That wasn't storyboarded. That was pretty much shot. Like I shot the flying wing in the first Raiders, I just pretty much made it up as I went along. And Vic and I shot most of that scene. And then when Harrison came back 6 weeks later, I just plugged in Harrison's close-ups.
It was a pretty remarkable recovery, I think. Pretty much based on the fact that I was in pretty good shape for the film to start with, and it helped a lot in my recovery.
Ever since I was a little kid, I loved Jackie Chan movies. I always watch them, and I'll practice kicking my brother, poor little brother. So it was fun doing those.
Concentrate on spinning. Yeah?
They did have a martial arts instructor on the set with me, which coached me for a few hours.
That's it, good one.
Other than that, I just went out there and did it. And it was pretty much, from watching all those Jackie Chan movies.
As we get into the mine car to make our escape, Key had a stick, and they were made of balsa wood, which is nothing, feels like air, like styrofoam. And he hit the big guy, and when he hit the big guy, it broke in half, and the other half hit me right in the eye. It felt like a slap, and the next morning when I woke up, I had what no one would believe. It was like someone took black paint and then just did this to me. So when I turned up to the set the next morning, I came in just to block the scene, and the entire set had their black smudge